Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for June 24th, 2025. We're going to start off today talking a little bit about polygamy. For some background on what spurred this, in 1886, amid federal crackdowns on polygamy, President John Taylor of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints recorded a revelation declaring plural marriage an everlasting, irrevocable covenant. Though the church officially renounced polygamy in 1890, Taylor's son, Apostle John W. Taylor, clung to the 1886 revelation and continued the practice, ultimately leading to his excommunication. The church long denied the revelation's existence, despite internal awareness and possession of the document as early as 1933. Fundamentalist groups upheld it as sacred proof of polygamy's divine origin. Now, over a century later, the so-called Taylor Revelation has quietly entered the church's historical catalog, raising enduring questions about prophetic authority, historical transparency, and the contested legacy of plural marriage in Latter-day Saint theology. In reality, the church can never release anything quietly anymore. Someone always knows, and the word gets out pretty quickly. So for over a week now, this revelation has been the talk in Mormon circles. Because of this, on the YouTube channel Mormon Book Reviews, Steve Pinecker had a discussion with 3 women about polygamy. Let's listen to a few clips and discuss. The woman speaking is Charlotte Erickson, a current practicing polygamist.
I'm talking about consenting adults. I'm talking about women getting to choose who they marry from the entire pool, whether the man is single or married. More choices for women, not fewer choices. And also, I guess this is where my belief is most different from my Mormon fundamentalist friends, is that I don't believe that polygamy should be mandatory. I don't think it should be required. I think it should just be allowed by the people who want to do it. I don't think there are enough women to even go around to support the idea that men have to have plural wives.
As far as polygamy goes, I think this is likely one of the healthiest ways to approach it. Consenting adults who get to choose, something that was mostly absent when polygamy was being practiced, starting with Joseph Smith.
Now, my background is Mormonism. I grew up in the mainstream church, and I didn't really know that much about polygamy at all. And what I did know was, I would say, mostly negative. And my husband was always interested in like the older things, I guess, but I was just ignorant about it.
As a believing member, I was not only ignorant, but very naive about polygamy. I knew that it had been practiced, but I really never thought much about it. I didn't think about where it started or how. I didn't think about how the women and girls may have felt about it. I learned about the ins and outs of polygamy after I had left the church, and it took some deconstructing of patriarchy to understand why the way polygamy had been practiced was so harmful.
My husband and I had been married for about 10 years. We got married in the temple. He's a returned missionary. You know, we met in college and we had a few children. And I started realizing there were problems with the church. And I became kind of a little too interested in whether or not the church leadership was receiving any revelations, because they didn't seem to be. Like, they didn't get up in general conference and say, "Thus saith the Lord," or any of those words. And somebody wiser than me pointed out that instead of focusing on whether the church leadership was receiving revelation from God, I should be interested in whether I was receiving revelation from God. And I can't say I was. I knew that, like my parents had taught me, you can pray for help making big life decisions, but I didn't ever consider the idea that maybe God had other things to tell me too along the way. And so I became very interested in having like a really personal relationship with God and hearing what he had to say about my life.
That line of thinking can be incredibly damaging to someone's testimony of mainstream Mormonism. In so many different ways, active Mormons realize that they don't need the brethren to be in between them and God, and this is one of them.
My husband was right there with me, and we started receiving like these concurrent revelations that were unexpected, I guess. One of the revelations we both received at the same time was that someone was going to be moving in with us. And so we prepared 2 bedrooms for the mystery people that would be moving in. We put beds and dressers in there, and they were just sitting in there empty. I moved all my children back into the master bedroom, and we were just ready and waiting, and I had no idea what was coming.
When I was active in believing, I found modern-day polygamy endlessly fascinating and sometimes horrifying, and I still do. If you want to hear the rest of this discussion, the link will be in the show notes. I love that this discussion is happening because the church decided to stop hiding a revelation and be honest. Now let's go to the ex-Mormon subreddit for this post. The title is Mr. Beast T-shirt announcement during sacrament meeting, and the post says, "I feel like I should give extra context or information or add some flair to the story, but it's as the title says and I'm still baffled. During sacrament meeting, the bishop announced that Just Serve and Mr. Beast are doing a collaboration and selling T-shirt merch and told us where to buy it. I have some problems. One, who approved this? I looked it up and apparently they've been partners since 2024, but merch? Of the YouTuber and allegedly very bad boss man? 2, why during what is supposed to be the most sacred, reverent part of Sunday service are we doing a sponsored segment? Just announce afterwards? I'm baffled by the decision, but then I remember that the church would do anything for a buck, including selling merch during service. I honestly would be surprised by this, but talks are given about tithing all the time, and what's the difference? Now let's go to the church news for some discussion. It says, in the final message to newly called mission leaders who are about to begin their service around the world, Church President Russell M. Nelson shared his testimony of the Book of Mormon and its ability to strengthen individuals' conversion to the gospel of Jesus Christ. On Sunday, June 22nd, President Nelson shared his message in a pre-recorded video with new mission leaders gathered at the Provo Missionary Training Center in Provo, Utah. He encouraged the new leaders to help the missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in their care be included among the lives changed and converted during their service. Now, this is interesting because in the October 2002 General Conference, M. Russell Ballard said, "We don't need spiritually weak and semi-committed young men. We don't need you to just fill a position. We need your whole heart and soul. We need vibrant, thinking, passionate missionaries who know how to listen to and respond to the whisperings of the Holy Spirit. This isn't a time for spiritual weaklings. We cannot send you on a mission to be reactivated, reformed, or to receive a testimony. We just don't have time for that. We need you to be filled with faith, hope, charity, and love with an eye single to the glory of God. And that is not all we expect of you, my young brethren. We expect you to have an understanding and a solid testimony of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. We expect you to work hard. We expect you to be covenant makers and covenant keepers. We expect you to be missionaries to match our glorious message." Now, these are high standards. We understand that, but we do not apologize for them. They reflect the Lord's standards for you to receive the Melchizedek priesthood, to enter the temple, to serve as missionaries, and to be righteous husbands and fathers. Please understand this. The bar that is the standard for missionary service is being raised. The day of the repent and go missionary is over. I think the church has backed away from that raised bar a bit, right? Ballard said they cannot send young men on missions to receive a testimony, and now Nelson is saying that mission presidents can help convert missionaries during their missionary service. During his remarks, Nelson also said, "Encourage your missionaries to study diligently. Help them see that inside the Book of Mormon are the answers to their questions," which I also find interesting because at the last General Conference, Ronald Rasband said, "I recognize that in the midst of the good news of the gospel, there are those who struggle, who have faith challenges, doubts, and questions that seem to have no answers. Brothers and sisters, Jesus Christ is the answer." I like to contrast these sorts of things because the more I read about Mormonism, the messier it becomes. And while I think many things can all be true at the same time, I was not presented, nor did I learn Mormonism in that way. Everything was extremely binary, in or out, all or nothing. There was no time or space in Mormonism for fence sitters. Now I want to read a poem that was sent to me. No one was given credit, so if this is your most beautiful piece of work and you want me to attribute it to you, please let me know and I will put a link in the show notes. It says, "They told me I was sacred, but only if covered. They wrapped my shoulders in shame, stitched virtue into cotton seams, measured my worth by inches of skin. Modest is hottest," they'd smirk, as if desire was my fault, as if my bare skin could cast men into hell. Garments, holy shields, they said, a covenant, not a cage. But I remember sweating in summer, pulling sleeves down over rebellion, crying in dressing rooms because nothing appropriate fit my body. Now they say it was never about modesty, that we misunderstood. The sacred fabric can suddenly shrink, bare shoulders blessed overnight. How convenient. When culture shifts, so does God. No apology, no reckoning, just a gaslit-flavored revelation and a new dress code to sell. But I remember the fear, the shame, the way they turned my body into a battleground. You can change the garments, but you can't erase the years. The summers I sweltered in silence, the dresses I skipped, the shame I carried like a second skin. I honestly felt emotional reading that. Garments were such a struggle for me, and they made me feel like a stranger in my own body. Now let's listen to this quick clip about the language used around assault.
Sentence, a woman is raped. There's a crime and there's a victim, but there's no perpetrator. Where's the perpetrator? Where is he? Statistically, as we know, most likely, he's walking free. He's so free that he doesn't even appear in the language about the crime that he committed. Is that not extraordinary? It's extraordinary that in the very grammar, the perpetrator goes free. Reintroducing perpetrators in the language will make some very unwieldy grammar. But that's the nature of change. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
I wanted to listen to that because something about it reminded me of this video that was aired after BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff was accused of sexual assault in November of 2023, and a civil lawsuit was filed against him last month. Speaking is BYU Director of Athletics Brian Santiago.
It's a private matter. The university made a statement, and Jake and his attorney have both released statements. And our responsibility is to care for our student athletes. Certainly, it's a tough situation. Be ignorant not to say it's a tough situation, but it's a private matter that's going to be handled privately. We just found out about it when others found out about it, and so we want to respect the privacy of Jake. We want to respect the privacy of the university. We want to respect the privacy of those involved as the matter gets worked out, and have full confidence that the right thing will happen moving forward.
There is at least one Mormon Stories interview that I remember where the guest talks about how athletes at BYU are often protected from the consequences of their actions, while other students who do the same things are not. It's episode 1459, and the synopsis says, "Is there a double standard at BYU when divvying out punishments to athletes versus students who break the honor code?" Mormon Stories producer and co-host Kara Burrell takes the reins on this intense episode as lead interviewer of our guest, Kelly Trust, as we take a deep dive into answering that question. Finally feeling freed from the constraints that kept her quiet for too long, Kelly describes the confusing, unhealthy sexual messages around her body that plagued her youth, the relationship with a star BYU athlete that led to her expulsion from the school while the players stayed, and the faith crisis that ensued after reading the CES letter. My question is, if Jake Retzlaff did what is claimed, will he be held accountable? Now let's go to the offender registry for Lehi, Utah to meet Mark Kevin Hawes. He was convicted in 2010 of forcible SA, a second-degree felony, and attempted forcible sodomy, also a second-degree felony. And, if I'm not mistaken, he was recently released from prison and now appears on the Ex-Mormon subreddit in a post that says, "So apparently you can SA your daughter for 14 years, go to prison, and still get baptized. I hate the cult." Then there is a screenshot from Facebook that has this man standing with family members and wearing the white baptismal coveralls, with the caption, "My husband got rebaptized today. It was a long road back. The church is true. The atonement is real." Under the screenshot, the original poster says, "This is a distant related family member. Honestly didn't even realize he was released. So disgusted and disappointed in my family that attended. That shit is unforgivable." In the comments, she also added the following tidbits. "Seriously, this woman," speaking about the wife of the man who's getting baptized, "lost contact with her only daughter because she chose to stand on the side of a disgusting predator. She," meaning the one who was abused, "confessed to a friend about 4 years after it ended, and the friend went to authorities. She's gotten married and started her own family since and seems to be doing really well. I truly will never understand why she," Mark's wife Jan, "chose to stay with him. I don't know if the victim knows he is out because she doesn't have contact with much of the family anymore, and I really do not blame her." I am personally not surprised by any of this. I've said this before, but when SA came out in my family, my parents rushed to forgive and forget before even stopping for 1 second to make sure the victim, my younger sister, had any support, which she really didn't. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "To Catch a Predator never filmed an episode outside a drag queen's house, but they did film 20 episodes featuring football coaches, pastors and priests, doctors, lawyers, uncles, and brothers." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.